guys, welcome to another edition of Suburban Driving with Miranda. It is frigid out here, but we are with the all-new BMW X3 xDrive 30e. Yes, it's a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle just like the X5. Is it worth the extra money to have that little bit of EV power? Let's find out. Welcome to the BMW X3 30e. So this is another one of BMW's xDrive or X model plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. So I had the X5 last week and I transitioned into the smaller X3. So this is, they have the X4 now, which is a bit of more of a coupe shape, kind of like the X6. So the X3 is like a step down from the X5 in terms of size overall, and engine size, and battery power and capability. So let's talk about that. This has a smaller kilowatt battery than the X5, which means that I only have about 30 kilometers of full electric range on this thing. If it's been plugged in, depending on how I drive, the conditions, what I have turned on, what I don't, all that fun stuff. But with the 2-liter 4-cylinder engine that it has and the combined battery power, that puts its power output up to 288 horsepower and 310 pound-foot of torque. Now, of course, having the battery on board along with the engine means that this is also a much heavier X3 than, let's say, the xDrive 30i, which is the most powerful X3 in the lineup. So the whole point of getting a PHEV, a hybrid and electric of any type, let's be honest, not to save the environment. That's not why we do it. The environment's already, you know what I mean. We do it to not pay over $1 a liter at the pumps when we fill up our tanks. So how does this become a viable PHEV, especially at the price that it is? So it starts around the $50,000 mark, and I have the M Sport packaged X3, which means I've got all the extras, all the fixings, and it is quite a bit more expensive. So how do you justify not just buying a base X3 or I don't know, something that's not as heavy, just because you have this battery that could potentially get you 30 kilometers, give or take, on battery alone, which means you don't touch the gas. Here's how you do it. You live close to work and school and all your errands. You don't have a lot of long trips. So let's say you're within a 50K range of everything. Your circle is that 50K diameter from your house for all the things. So if you have that and you plug your X3 in every single night to charge it, and you play around, so there's a lot of drive modes down here. I have Sport, I have Comfort, I have Eco Pro, and BMW is really really great for being able to change up the dynamics as you drive and for your drive. So you can really customize how your vehicle reacts to you, to the road, to your driving conditions, and those settings really help. So even with the Eco Pro mode, you can change up how your X3 30e actually drives and how it uses its power and where it puts it. So you can drive in full EV mode if you have it, even, you don't even have to put it in Eco Pro, up to about, I think, 125 kilometers an hour. It'll stay in full battery mode. Obviously that will drain your battery quite quickly if you're driving at that speed on the highway, but you can accelerate, you can drive normally, you know, I've done it. And then the Eco Pro, obviously, it will make your battery last longer, but it kind of like kills everything else. Like it completely dulls your throttle response and all that fun stuff. So right now I have no battery. I'm running in a hybrid mode. So when I'm on the highway and as it regenerates the battery based on kinetic energy as I'm driving with braking, etc., it will gather power for the battery, and when I'm cruising, it's going to switch the engine off and let me survive in battery mode, which will then help me save on gas. So this is how you do it. I mean, if I think about the X5 that I had last week and the fact that after a full week of driving and, you know, going quite far with it and big distances, and I plugged it in a couple times. I didn't plug it in every night, so there were a couple days where I was just on gas, and I barely had to put any fuel in it when I brought it back. You know, I made sure that I had charged it as best I could. And my only lament, because I know you watched it, was the fact that I couldn't pull any more amps than 16 amperage to charge it. So even at a level 2 charger, it takes a while. So you can't just go quickly. I mean, you can't now anyways, but you couldn't just go to a fast charger and sit and have a coffee, or, you know, go shopping or go to the mall and look around and whatever for a half hour, 45 minutes and hope to have it charged, because it's such a small range. Because the battery is smaller, it can't pull the amperage of, let's say, a Tesla or a fully EV vehicle like our e-Golf or like the Bolt, etc. So I think that's really the downfall of these PHEVs, from what I can see for BMW, because honestly there's really nothing else wrong with it. I think this is fully worth the price that you would pay for it. If you're in the market for a luxury SUV and you want a little bit of a relief at the pumps, you want to have that EV experience, you want to be able to travel without spraying noxious fumes into the ozone layer, then this is a super viable decision for you. And it drives very much like a BMW. You know, like I said, the battery is quite heavy, but with the engine up front and the batteries in the back, you lose a tiny amount of trunk space. Like there's a lip in the back, and honestly it's like nothing. It almost equals itself out, so it still has the same power to weight ratio. It's almost that 50-50 split. I think you've got 57 in the back, 43 in the front, in terms of weight percentages, and the engine works really nicely with the battery, so you've got that good amount of torque. So that 310 pound-foot of torque makes a huge difference on acceleration. It doesn't feel piggish, it doesn't feel overly heavy, and it still has that dynamic BMW feel that you hope to have in a vehicle like this. Now, yeah, okay, it's an SUV, so it's not an M car, it's not the Roadster, it's not the Z4, but you still get that nice sporty BMW feel. And you know, you can put it in sport mode if you really want to, and it'll tighten up the suspension, and it'll make the throttle that much more responsive, and it tightens up the steering, and so you can play with how your X3 feels, even in a PHEV like this. And I think that really, you know, kind of, it helps build the character on this. You know, selling a PHEV, especially in the luxury market, I think could be a little bit difficult. You know, you in the world of Teslas and e-trons and all of these super high-end, very fancy, fully electric vehicles, why would you dish out money for the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle? That extra bit, you know? And the answer is, well, what if you have to go further? And what if you don't want to stop to a supercharger? Or what if you don't want to install a charger at home? You know, what if you just want to plug this into the wall, which you can? You know, I plugged the X5 into the wall, I plugged the X3 into the wall. Like, I don't have a fast charger at home. And it's doable. And if you need the extra room, one of the comments that my son made immediately getting into the X3 was that he found it more roomy than the X5. I don't know if he's just being a 9-year-old and talking crazy, but checking the seat position and him sitting in the back, so I have so much more leg room, and I feel like there's so much more room up here, and like the back seat just seems more open. And maybe he's right. I don't know how the physics work on it. It could be that the X3 has the higher roof line, so it all just seems a bit more popped up. But he likes the X3 more than the X5 in terms of interior space and comfort in the back for him. He loves it, and plus the color of these seats is pretty awesome. He could forgive the fact that it doesn't have the crystal shifter. I mean, it's a little distracting anyways while you're driving. But I mean, overall, I've kind of always liked the X3. The X1 was a hard sell for me. The X5 is so big, and the X6, let's not even talk about it. And the X4, I just feel like I'm just rattling off numbers to you, but the X3 always made sense. And I think it's a very good size, and if you have a moderately sized family and you do moderate life things, this is more and it has a great drive. All the BMW-ness that you would hope to have in a BMW is here, despite it being a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. And then you have that ability to plan your drives and plan your life around this 30-kilometer battery range, to no longer have to visit the gas station as often as you would. And with the price of gas the way that it is, and it's not going to go down anytime soon, that little bit of extra life ease or easiness is that tipping point where I think it really does make sense, and that it equals out that the little bit of extra that you would pay for the X3 xDrive 30e over the base model is well worth it. Inside the X3 30e, it's typical BMW fare. I have the nice M Sport steering wheel. It's nice and thick. I've got my paddle shifters should I want. I've not really used them. Again, this car kind of functions so well on its own with its transmission and the engine and figuring itself out that I don't feel the need to. Plus, I'm not really doing that kind of sporty driving when I'm in a CUV. And in terms of the center stack, I've got a really nice size screen here. It is either touch or I can use the dial down here in the center stack. And I have a really nice storage compartment down here as well, where I have a charge pad, cup holders. I've got the armrest in here, which also offers more storage, plus another USB plug if I want to charge something else. And really, this is a really comfortable interior. I mentioned on the drive that when my son got in, he thought that this felt bigger than the X5. Even though this is a smaller vehicle, somehow it feels airier, it feels bigger. He felt he had more leg room, that he could, he had more headroom above him, and it just is a bigger vehicle, which it's not. The X3 is actually smaller than the X5, but there's something about this interior that just makes it feel larger, which is really nice because it is a smaller vehicle. This tan leather is gorgeous against the black. It really pops, and then you've got your wood inserts and your trim, and it's just a really classy high-end interior. Again, typical BMW, the usual HMI, which is great. It's the new edition, super easy to use, really easy to navigate, very user-friendly. Everything's at hand. I don't feel like things are out of reach or that I can't fully function while I'm driving or when I'm sitting still. And in terms of interior space, like I said, the back seat's great. The trunk has a really good amount of space, even though the battery takes up that little extra lip in the back. Doesn't make that much difference in terms of trunk space for you. So all in all, it's a great little car inside. Well, there's no denying that this is a BMW. And if you look at it quickly, you'd think, oh wait, she's still in the X5. But this is the X3. It is smaller dimensionally and physically, though it is the same color, and it features the same front end design, the same rear tail lights. It's not as stylized as the X5. I don't have those really cool blue outlined headlights up front, which I kind of miss and I kind of wish it had, because now the only way to tell that this is actually a PHEV is the fact that you have the dual filler tank cap. So you've got one up front for your plug-in for the EV, and then you have one in the back for your gas, obviously. So really that's the only way, and then of course the badge on the back as well. But I wish BMW had done something a little bit different with the X3 just to set it apart like they did with the X5. It's kind of cool. You've paid that extra to have your plug-in hybrid EV. You kind of want to stand out from the pack just a little bit. All that to say, this has the M Sport package. So I have the nice M caliper blue calipers, my larger wheels. I have a little bit more in terms of exterior aesthetics, a bit of a beefier front bumper. I have the door sills. I have all the stuff that the M Sport package gives me. And this is a really nice looking SUV. It has that athletic stance. It has that presence on the road. It's not in your face. It's not overly garish. It doesn't have spoilers and huge wheel wells and hood scoops and but it's still, it makes a statement, and it's classic. And I think in years to come, people will look at this X3 and say, oh yeah, that's still a very good looking SUV. All right, guys, that's been it for me. Thank you so much for joining me on this X330E drive. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you have any questions or comments, you can hit me up at Miss Miranda L on Twitter or Instagram, and Miranda Lightstone on Facebook.com, or drop a comment below on the Suburban On Air. Hope to catch you guys next week. Thanks so much. Bye.